We have a reception at the end of the afternoon, and I'm assured that there's free beer, there's free wine, so we can have a few drinks, have a chat, Right, we seem to have lost about half the audience.
That's fine by me. If the other half want to go.
Because I would imagine there's going to be a kind of a stream of people coming in throughout. Are you staying or leaving? You're trying to go? Okay. Okay, we really need to get going. I'd like to introduce Aaron Langley. Aaron was here at Brains Eden a couple of years back, and he was, in fact, one of the Brains Eden winners. So, yeah, obviously a star in the making. He has subsequently gone on and he has his own company, Ludophobia, which is doing amazingly well. Turning into a megacorp as we speak. Yeah, and he can tell you more about it. Here he is.
I'll stick to that if that's all right. This is my presentation, making games for other people, which isn't as good as making games for yourself, but what are you going to do? Like I said, my name's Aaron Langmead. First, a little bit about myself. So, presentation, go, yeah. I am graduating this year at Southampton Solent University. Third year project, I made a game called Attack the Horde. That did okay. But what are you going to do? As an artist, I have created a few little portfolio pieces, and most importantly, set up a company called Ludophobia with my friend Adrian, who does the coding side. And we take a slightly different approach to a normal game design company. What we do is we market ourselves, we say we are, specialists in bespoke media design. So what we do is we go to a company and take, say, like a boring training video, most of you people here, I think. And what we do is we make it fun through gamification, turn it into a gaming experience where they're learning those same principles, but through a game. Back to that slide. Yeah, and as you can see, the services that we offer on the right there. So, app gaming, training, education, architectural visualization, just these different things, and we take the profits that we make from these client projects, and we use them to fund our own little games, which we then release out to the public. Yeah, cool. So what I'm first going to do is explain our client, how we got my first client, and our client process, and the process of that. Sorry, and then gives you a few tips on dealing with clients. This is something that you would like to do. So our first client was Kraft Foods, or Cadbury's, which was great because we got a load of free chocolate. And yeah, how did I meet Kraft? Went to a conference, which is so obviously just trying to network, trying to meet different people, and they were looking at store visualization fly-throughs. And I went up to one of them and went, why don't you try thinking about this in maybe a gaming sense? You could train your staff through a game instead of them watching a video on where they should be putting point-of-sale displays, and they could play it instead. And then they'd learn through, those important messages. And they went, no, go away. you're irritating me now. So I went away to my hotel room, got out my laptop, opened up UDK, and I built them a visualization store, which they could run around in, see what they thought. And I brought it down to them the next day, showed it to them, and 3 weeks later, I was working on a game with them, paid. So that worked out pretty well. So that's how we got our client. But what was the actual project like? Let's go to our next slide. So first we looked at what did the client want, which was our big thing. So, we talked to them, got an idea of what they wanted, what they needed, and we got a short list of what we actually wanted from that. So I've got them here. So, something easy to play, new way of training their sales team. Naturally, sales teams are really competitive people because obviously the work that they do is quite competitive naturally. So creating games where you have like a high score thing works really well for them because they want to beat each other at it straight away, and they don't even realise that they're learning where they should be putting these point of sale displays. Once we got our list down, we developed a prototype, which is that. That's what I actually gave them, still with the blue and white squares in UDK. But they didn't know that, so that was fine. And they could run around it, try it out, see the basic gameplay mechanics, so that they're getting something which is tailored exactly for them, so that they can see it perfectly. Okay, so then we go. In some other cases, we would develop multiple prototypes, develop multiple ideas with them, in case they were kind of a bit, unsure on how they wanted to do it, unsure on, kind of what they wanted to teach in the first place. Developing a few little ideas really quickly, with a very fast turnover, which might make, a 48-hour gaming festival quite useful, because if you can make a game in 48 hours, you can make a prototype in 48 hours, and you can show that to them in 2 days' time, and suddenly they've got something that is, tailored specifically for what they want. And then, we created the design outline, which is basically, a nice big document saying what the game needed to do, what it was going to look like, what the maps were, all the different elements ready and in. And then we start making the actual game, which is a big loop of software development through Sprint and client feedback. So every week we'd be sending the client an update of the game, where they'd be able to give us feedback, input on what they thought, so that we could tailor the game specifically for them. So basically, while we were developing the game, we would be working on the fixes and the things that they wanted to change. So if they didn't like the font, didn't like the character, things like that, we'd be changing it as we were building the game. And then we ended up with a finished game, yay, which last year they unveiled at one of their own conferences. It's now in England and America, and we've just finished off an Arabic version of the game. Once you've done a game for them, a big company like this, they'll want to, maybe do more things with you, do, expansions, different things like that, and different languages. Okay, so next onto the tips, and I've just realised I haven't been reading any of this, so that's great. So are you client focused? That is the main thing. You've got to make sure that you are you're doing the projects, what you're building, it's specifically for them. And be professional. So this doesn't necessarily mean wearing a suit. You just have to, come in, know what you're talking about, be polite, just the basic things that when you're going in, and treat them with respect. Don't mention God of War, maybe, where you ripped a guy's head off and use it as a torch, because unfortunately the games industry still has a massive stigma behind it. When you say, oh yeah, I make games, they just think, this guy. That's what every single game designer looks like, apparently. You've got to basically be professional, not mention games as an actual thing, but talk about it specifically for what they need and what they need. We also just call it interactive media, don't even call it games, because games just scare them a lot of the time. Don't use jargon, at all when you're talking to them. We learned that the hard way, so we'd be saying, oh yeah, we'll just, slap a few normal maps on there, that'll be fine. They'll be like, what the hell's a normal map? And you just think, because, we all talk to each other, we've all got a lot of games experience, a lot of games knowledge, we know exactly what, we're talking about when we use our jargon, but they haven't got a clue, even with just general gaming things. So you've really got to be very specific in what you do, and if you do have to use jargon, make sure you explain it afterwards. And hopefully, if you're lucky, they won't use any of their jargon. Yeah, and also if you're really lucky, like we were, you'll have someone who's, who's worked with creative people before, so who understands that, we're a bit crazy, and things like that. So next, keep it simple. This is one of the things that we learned, and again the hard way. When we did our game for Craft, we used WASD to move, which is, makes sense, right? But when they tried to move around, they couldn't get it because they instantly went for the arrow keys. So yeah, you've got to, because they're just thinking logically. They're thinking, okay, I want to move my character left, so I'll use the thing that looks left. So I'll click that one, not A, which is just something that we've, been programmed to use. So keep it simple, and you make sure you remember that you're developing for people who might not play games regularly. That really irritates me. It's easy, isn't it? You just push a button and you get like a game, because you've still got this massive just stigma of people thinking that game design and game development is just an extension of gameplay. When you say, oh yeah, I'm a games developer, they just instantly think playing, Call of Duty or whatever, and then, 2 years down the line you come out with a game for some reason. Like they don't see the worth in it, or they don't see the value, or why you're even charging so much in the first place to develop this for them. And you've got to show them and give them a reason why they should be doing it. And our best way for doing that was to just make them a prototype. Whoops, that's a dog. So yeah, develop and prototype. Because like I was saying earlier with Craft, I was telling them, explaining to them, pouring all the love that I have for game design into going, you should be doing this, it's fun, it's great, and people still learn, and they're just doing the dog, that's great. Yeah. So, you make them a prototype, and they instantly can see something that is tailored for them. And they don't see the game, like kind of the gamer side of it anymore. They don't see, Halo or Gears of War. They just see what is actually, it's there for them. And lastly, know what you're talking about. Every single person here has, I'm going to guess, a lot more knowledge than me about general gameplay, gaming, and game development. But what you need to know is, if you're developing for a client, is stuff that's specific for them. And I'm going to give you a few places which I go to for information. The first one, and the best one, yeah, don't be that, is Extra Credits. These guys know what they're talking about. They're all, industry pros in various aspects. Especially James, who's the small animated character on the right. And they basically make a video every week, which is very concise, very informative on various topics within game design. The next one is Mark Zuckerman, I think his name is. Yeah, Gabe Zuckerman, sorry. Got his name wrong. He'd hate me if he was here. And he did a TED Talk recently, which was basically on education and training in games. And he had a huge amount of information on that. So if you watch his video, I think they're on YouTube, and just watch through them and get as much information as you can. He's got some information on Nanth Pai's work on schools, which was done over in America, where a guy basically went into a school and he replaced the entire curriculum with DS games. And like the results were like amazing, what actually happened from that. And lastly, Snack Strong Productions. I'm sure if you've got Xbox 360, you've played one of their free games. They're a company that came from Doritos. And basically, if you look around the internet, they actually have their correlation of sales increases in respect to into their game releases. So you can see how much more Doritos were bought as soon as their games were released. Which is really useful information and stats to have if you ever wanted to do some advergaming and you were trying to pitch that to a client. And that's it. Thanks.
Aaron is really talking about gamification of everything. It's just basic idea that in the future everything is going to be digital. Everything has to happen through an interactive code. Everything is going to be a game, which is quite an interesting idea. Have we got some questions for Aaron?
Oh God, I hope not.
What's the most annoying thing about clients?
Oh, God. I hope they'll probably watch what I'm saying in front of the camera if they ever see. I think it depends on the client that you're working with, because we've worked with a few different ones. And generally, it's communication. If they can communicate with you what they want, how they want it, then it's fine. But as soon as they're ignoring what you're saying, so you're sending them updates and then they don't send anything back, and then, when you finish development, they go, oh, why can't we have done this? And we're just like, well, we've been doing this for the last 3 months. Why haven't you said something back then? I think that's probably one of the most irritating things. We had one project recently which literally the guy said, can we stop partway through, can we stop about 3 hours into development for it? And we said, okay, we'll put it on hold, that's fine. And he came back to us about a week later saying, so how's it going? He didn't even bother telling us that he wanted us to start back on the project again. So it's definitely communication.
Okay, thanks. Another question just here?
I didn't catch all of it, so I didn't actually look into it in your slides, but I got a gist from you that you were looking at new technologies and the future is all going to be digital. Have you got any thoughts on augmented reality?
My one recommendation is to go on Extra Credits, because they have a 2-part episode on augmented reality and just general ARGs, and they talk about using gaming in real life, so kind of like collecting chests in real worlds, and how that could potentially be exploited by like a company like Starbucks making a game where, oh yeah, you get 200 points if you go into Starbucks and buy a coffee and things like that. So yeah, that's my one recommendation, because they're going to know a lot more about it than I will.
What was the name of the guy who introduced DS games?
That was Ananth Pai. I'm not sure on the spelling. I think it's Ananth and then Pai. And he's, yeah.
Okay, another question.
Do you draw the slides for Extra Credits?
No, I don't. That's Alison, who's part of the Extra Credits team. I was just copying.
Okay, any more? One more.
How do you set a budget on your work, and how do you open up those discussions with potential clients?
How we've done it before is we worked out an hourly rate that we charge them for, and then we'll charge them for other excess stuff as well, and then we'll send them a quote with those hours outlined.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Aaron.
Okay.